Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Poorboys Little Homestead. If this is your first time stopping in, feel free to stop in anytime. Ain't no telling what you might see. You might learn some tips and tricks on how to do things. You might see some things and learn some tips and tricks on things you don't want to do. But anyway, today I'm preparing my in-ground gardening area for the gardening of 2021. So let's get to gardening. First up this morning, I installed my woven ground cover. And there's 3 good benefits to this ground cover, putting it on your garden and why you would want to use it. Number 1, it keeps the grass from growing up. A lot of men likes hanging out with hoes, but I ain't much on hanging out with a hoe. So I put my ground fabric down so I won't be having to use that hoe very often. Second thing, you lay out this black ground fabric and it'll heat your soil up in the early spring. That way to get your soil temperature up quicker. So when you plant, you ain't planting in cold soil. And third, even though that's black and it warms your soil up quicker, it does the opposite in the summertime. It keeps that soil moist under there, holds your moisture in your soil, and keeps your soil cooler. Now I don't remember what brand that right there is, but I experimented last year with some of this before I done the whole gardening, and I got D-Wit. And this year when I ordered this online on Amazon, I didn't get D-Wit. Of course, this here was just a little bit cheaper, but I wished I'd have paid the difference and got the D-Wit. And I'm gonna show y'all why. Okay guys, this is what I got this year. And right off the bat, as soon as I opened it, I could feel the difference before I even got them side by side. This is the D-Wit. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it just feels thicker and heavier. And the woven, where it's woven, it's just a tighter weave in it than this is. So this D-Wit, I know it's gonna last a lot longer than this other brand. Like I said, I don't even know what brand this is. If I look at it, I'll put it in the, attach it on screen. But also the D-Wit, I got 3 foot last year, and this year I got 4 foot. Now on my ground gardening that's just a flat ground, either one would be fine, but I wished I got 1 roll of 4 foot and a roll of 3 foot, because my rows, and all my rows ain't spaced out the same. That way I could have put a 4 foot, and then where I needed a 3 foot to keep it centered over my row. When I got that this year, I wished I'd have got a roll of 3 foot and a roll of 4 foot. See how my garden here, I got it rowed up, but each row's on a different spacing. These 2 rows is 5 foot apart. And the reason I do that, you'll see in future videos, I like planting my tomatoes spaced out, and I use round cages with a TP on top. My last 2 rows over there is just 4 foot apart, and that's because I'm gonna plant peppers, and then I'm gonna have 3 arch made out of cantle panel arches for my pole beams. But if you had 3 foot and 4 foot, like this one here, you can see it's kind of up on the edge of my row, the seam. Or if I'd had a 3 foot, I could have put a 3 foot and then took off with a 4 foot, and it all worked out better. But like I said, I used a de-wet last year just to experiment on a small place, and I really liked it. Keeps all the hose out my garden. But up next, I'm going to start installing my arches for my pole beans. And then when it comes time to plant, I just take a little torch. You want to use a torch because if you cut this, it'll ravel. You get one of them little mini torches and cut it, it'll melt it and it won't ravel. Some people just cut holes. I think what I'm going to do is cut a X with that torch. That way it'll be melted. But cut an X, that way when you plant your plant, you can fold it back down around the plant up close. Guys, when you installing this, the sun's a little bright this morning. When you installing this ground fabric, you install it with ground fabric stakes. These are 6 inch and these are 8 inch. I bought these last year 6 inches. And they just made out of wire and they rust, but this year I got 8 inches and they made out of galvanized wire where they won't rust. My soil's a good soft soil mixed in with some aged gin trash and some aged cow manure and some rabbit manure all tilled in. So I got a soft soil, so I needed some longer staples. But when you do this, even if you're gonna do a flat garden, it's better to get your garden the way you want it, rode up or level, and let it rain on it a couple of times and settle in, and then lay your fabric out. That way, when you're going down through there walking, you ain't smashing down a bunch of indentions, and plus your staples will hold in the dirt better. Also, when I do mine on the seams, I fold them over, and then put the staple in them. That way the outside edges won't start raveling. When you buy staples, whatever you think you need, my advice is to double that when you order, because when you start doing it, you're going to want to put them closer together than you thought to begin with. On average, mine's about 3 foot apart, but then I come back down through there and randomly stuck some, but on each end and around the outside edge, I got them about every 12 to 16 inches, because I don't want no wind getting under mine and blowing it up. So the best thing you can do is just whatever you think you need, go on and double it, because you can use these for all kind of stuff. I use them for staking my tomatoes the way I stake them. I put a cage around them, and then I got a teepee on top. I stretch the string up the middle, and I use these at the bottom to hold the string. Some people ties it to their tomato, but to me that's not good. When the wind blowing, it's steady flopping and it's pulling on your tomato plant. This ground fabric, I'm gonna have drip irrigation, but I'm gonna run mine right down the top, because water will go through it. Some do it under it. I like the idea of doing it on top, just because if my drip irrigation tubing stopped up, I can see it. I ain't got to worry about trying to get under there to repair it. It's just right there on top. And as I use these staples here to staple my drip tape down through there of my drip tubing. So you got all kind of uses for this. Now this ground fabric, I don't plan on taking up every year. My intentions is to leave it down for about 3 years. So when I pull my plants up in the fall, and when I come back the next spring to plant in that hole, I'll dig that dirt out of that hole and get me some of my good fresh compost, and I put rabbit manure down in the bottom of that hole. If I ain't got rabbit manure, I use a little fertilizer down in the bottom of the hole when I plant my plant. But right now I'm finna start laying out where I'm gonna put my arches for my pole beans. Now I got some fence posts, just T-posts. These are 5.5 or 6 foot, some of each, and I just cut them in half. I'm gonna use 2 on this row and 2 on this row, and drive them right on top of my rows. And then I'm gonna take that cow panel and make an arch, and then I can tie the bottom of that cow panel to these T-posts. And there's one of them. Now I'm on at the bottom. I'm gonna take some 14 gauge. It's electrical fencing wire, what it is, but it don't rust, is why I use it. And I'm gonna tie that good. And then I'm gonna do 2 more of them. That's gonna be my pole beans. They can just grow and run over them and plant on each side and let them come up, and then they can just keep going. I ain't got my torch out here, but I'm gonna get my torch and I'm gonna melt them ravel where I just cut them holes. I'll melt them, that way they won't keep rattling. Hey guys, some things would be easier if you had a helper, but I'm all alone, so I try to get her done. I'm gonna finish tying them up. I was just looking at that. They get loaded down with beans in a good wind. I'm probably gonna come back, put 1 T-post, a tall T-post in the center of every one of them, between them posts. For last year, I had some tomatoes up there about 7 foot tall in my cages, that tall round cages. And when that hurricane came from South Louisiana, I'm in North Louisiana, but the winds was strong enough, it wiped all my tomatoes out. So this year I'm gonna have a T-post at each one of my cages. I may just try 1 T-post on each one. If that don't seem like that's good enough, I'll put 1 T-post on each side. Because I don't plan on removing these 2 or 3 years. Let me get this tied. Alright guys, so now I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna put 1 T-post, a tall T-post in the center, but I'm just gonna do it on one side. I think that'll be good enough. It'll still move in high winds, but it won't be able to go nowhere. Then I'm gonna take my little torch and I'm gonna melt around where I slit that for them T-posts so it won't ravel. Okay guys, that's the completion of preparing my in-ground garden. That's all I'm gonna do until it gets Time to plant them peppers and tomatoes. And I'm gonna have 3 different kinds of pole beans there. That's why I done them in 3 spots instead of 1 long spot, because I like planting different things, a little bit of a lot of stuff. When it comes time to plant my peppers and tomatoes, I plant them. Then I run my drip line down through there, and it'll all be good to go. So I hope this video gives somebody some ideas. If you got different ideas or different ways of doing things, please leave it in the comments. I love to see and try different things. So please leave comments below how you do it, or suggestions on how you think it would be better. But thanks for watching. God bless and have a great day.